Hello, Janine.
How are you? It's
I'm.
live.
It
Hello.
is.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being here. And I would like to start saying thank you for your attention. It's so rare nowadays. It's the rarest, most golden kind of energy. Thank you so much for paying attention to what we will talk about today together.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about you. It's personal this time.
Exactly. Maybe we start by taking a minute to invite you to consider for a moment what takes you to work every morning, just for 3 seconds. What really gets you up in the morning and go to your job?
Mm.
How often do we ask ourselves that question? But most importantly, how often do we feel that the reason for going to work every morning is actually reflected in what we see, for example, in the news every day? So I'm going to start with something. I'm going to start us off with something, Janine.
Yes.
Last night, the first Minister of Environment of Colombia, who's of course around, was saying a sentence that I found striking, and at the same time, sadly, I felt we are so numb to that sentence. Already, 94% of vertebrates of South America are gone. Are gone. 94% of vertebrates are gone. If that's not failure, what's failure? Right? So let's ponder that for a minute. For me, the paradox, the rift between what takes each one of us to work every morning and that data point
Yeah.
has to bring us to a moment of taking perspective, observing ourselves from a little bit of a wider lens, from repeating what we've been repeating to do what we do.
Yeah. No wonder we're numb. Right. And I think what one of the drivers of this extinction crisis is the fact that we have pushed down a few things. And I want to bring that back up. I'm a great believer these days in aspirational vows. And these are things that don't come from spreadsheets. They come from our souls and they say who we are, the content of our character, as Martin Luther King would say, is in those aspirational goals, or aspirational vows. They're not goals. They're the things you whisper to yourself that on my watch, I am going to make sure that this happens. And then you guys, we all start to go to our companies and we start to, I think, mistake what our company is doing for who we are. So I want to get back to who you are and I know we are not in this room. We are not the people preparing to go to Mars, right? That's not what brought you here, but that aspirational vow, and the grief when we hear those stats comes from the fact that somehow that aspirational vow that we made when we were perhaps very young, that we're what are we telling our younger selves that made that vow? But I literally make it a practice now before I roller skate in the halls of power, which I do, and you guys walk into that boardroom, um, to remind yourself of that aspirational vow, and that's you. And I believe you can bring your company to that level of depth, and you're going to do it through spreadsheets, but that's not really the wellspring of it. It's the vow that you have.
Wellspring. Oh, it's went off. Yeah. We're okay.
Are you guys hearing? Oh,
Let's be patient. Here we are again.
we are now. Hear any of that? It was a whisper. I was talking about whispering. So,
Well, how else is change going to happen if it's not by whispers?
yeah.
So, talking about the well, that place from where we do that vow. For me, the moment that I came there, and I was asking myself, what are we repeating wrong that we're getting it that wrong that we wake up every morning, go to work, and then 94% of species go extinct anyway? What are the deeper patterns beyond talking it forest conservation, water protection, climate change, biodiversity loss, polarization, supremacy, human supremacy over the rest of nature that we share this planet with? You name it. Gender inequality, injustice, all of it. What's underneath all of that? Why did we get it all that wrong? But not just to stay in the why, but to go further to say, what do I need to do different? For me, the upstream, the depth of the well light that came was perhaps our deeper mindsets, our deeper paradigm of understanding ourselves as separate from the rest of nature, even in the best cases, the cases where, like, we in this room are trying to we see nature there as something, not necessarily someone, but something that I need to protect in order to get a better, comfortable life for humans. That still is a paradigm where I see nature there and me here. Nature there, humans here, even in the best of cases. A paradigm where you could call it a metaphysical thinking, where we understand the world as particle, a collection of particles, a very complex machine that I can fix. So I get myself into a very difficult, complex, data set, Excel sheet, complicated fix, but one day I'll get there and I'll fix it. And I thought, okay, maybe there is where I need to make a shift. Maybe we need to shift this paradigm to something else. And the question is how? Because it's easy to say, right? But we need to practice it. That's what our work is about. So how do you do that, Janine?
Well, it's absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That split in Western industrial culture has it's given us a lot of leeway to do things that we normally wouldn't do if we truly believed that we were part of this, right? Um, but it has also made us incredibly lonely. So coming home to this planet as a welcome species is what I think our work is about. It's to remind ourselves we are nature. We're a very young species, one of the youngest, 200, 300,000 years old compared to 3.8 billion years. And so we have a lot to learn. And that's where biomimicry comes in. So and you may know biomimicry as learning from the natural world to create all kinds of new inventions that are earth friendly and time tested. And that is true. But in terms of what you all do and this conference, this this move to nature positive, which I hope we wave to net zero on the way, and make sure the aspirational vow is all the way to net positive. And for me, what that means is that we adopt the most biomimetic thing that any species can do, because every species of the 99% that have become extinct, there's 1% left, and they have learned a very simple thing. They've learned how to reciprocate, to return the favor, to create benefits beyond their borders, to create conditions conducive to life. So what that means is, from an ecological standpoint, when you go and look at a healthy forest, you can look at the outcomes of it. And this is where we should be getting our metrics, I think, nature's benchmarks. You can see that the water going into the forest is cleaner when it leaves. That's benefits beyond the borders. The air is cleaner. There's more wildlife coming, right? So these systems are active contributors downstream and downwind. And that's how this place creates conditions conducive to life. So the how for us as a company at Biomimicry 3.8 has been something called Project Positive, where we measure when we work with clients like Microsoft, Ford, Jacobs, HOK, Google. They're all in this cohort. And what they're doing is, one of their biggest things that they make, their biggest artifacts, are their buildings and their sites. So we're challenging them to produce positive ecosystem services at the same level or even exceed the level of the wildland next door. We measure nature's benchmarks, get those benchmarks for 21 ecosystem services. We find that ecological performance, we measure the current performance, and we design into that delta.
And what we do at Mundo Común is work with you, the individuals, the humans, the network of relations that actually create all of that possibility fractally, to understand that actually that is something that starts with our own possibility of reciprocity and of creating positive impact, not only around us but within us. So when you think of, I love your metaphor, Janine, about what species that are successful do they reciprocate. When you think of life in the longer times of the earth, for a moment take the perspective of the life on earth in its 4.5 billion years. Life is the most successful energy transduction technology that has existed. Energy transduction, life takes energy from the sun and transform it in a myriad ways. And the successful forms of life transduce energy in a way that does not cannibalize the source of energy to total depletion. That's what humans are doing basically right now. We're not the only species that has been geomorphic, that has created conditions that change completely the Earth system. Several million years ago, cyanobacteria did this, and they created the atmosphere. Nothing less than that. The atmosphere that we breathe is the outcome of a toxic pollution crisis created by a species that completely changed the Earth in the same dimension as humans are doing right now. But what did they do? They are still the most present type of bacteria on Earth. They allow for life to exist. They created the capacity for the rest of life that was able to metabolize energy to continue, and they continued to metabolize energy like what we could do, unless we completely deplete that. But where does that start? It starts with understanding that the first energy crisis that we are facing is our own human capacity to transduce energy in a way that preserves energy. So when each human that is part of a web of relations that then names itself Microsoft or Biomimicry Institute or BHP or whatever you name it, that web of relations is composed of humans whose capacity to transduce energy is depleting itself completely, i.e., you are depleting yourself completely, then how are we going as a species to maintain our capacity to really be part of a massive metabolism at the global scale that could continue to live, basically? So that's what we do. We work with the individuals, with the humans, and we restore our capacity to understand that we are nature, and we practice what it is. We practice it in the wilderness, what it is to create relationships based on care and interdependence, because that's basically the paradigm shift that we are looking for.
And that sense of agency, that taking care of yourself to take care of your company to take care of the planet, right? It really is true scientifically, just as you talked about the great oxygenation event, which was this huge pollution event. There was too much oxygen until organisms then went, wow, lots of oxygen, that's a resource, and started to use it, right? Those were individual organisms evolving those adaptations. And so there is, while you may feel that as individuals you cannot make a change, scientifically we know that big changes, big phase shifts happen from small fluctuations. They call them islands of coherence,
Right.
Small fluctuations where parts of the system are getting it right. And there is a phase change in which those parts of that system getting it right find each other and begin to amplify that signal for the next step. And I think, what frustrates us now, back to your original thing, is that it seems like it's too little, too late, and too few of us. But actually, that's how phase changes happen. Even in a they're finding now there's this thing called applied nucleation, which is about regeneration. So we're going to have to regenerate billions of hectares on this planet. And the best way to do that is look at natural regeneration. And what we do normally now is we go and we plant a tree every few feet, right, in a corn row, and then say, regenerate. That's not the way it works. What happens is there's a stick in the middle of an empty field, and a bird lands on it and brings a seed, and then another bird. And then you have a small island of healing. You've got this island of multiple species. And then you have the same thing happen over there and there. And the science tells us you only need 16% of the field to be covered by those islands. Those congeal. And that's how regeneration happens in the natural world.
To the 100%.
That's what I see out here.
Right,
Each
exactly.
one of you is a small island of coherence in your company.
Exactly. Science has also called those islands of coherence refugia. And it's all about learning how to be you, and fractally to be a refugia for regeneration. And because the universe is fractal, if you've ever read the latest physics, then if you do understand that for yourself, that's where the biggest world creating agency lies, is being refugia. Our time is up, Janine, but this has been such a pleasure.
It has been a
Thank
pleasure.
you. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you.